So we're back with another episode, technically speaking. Very special guest today. We're joined today by Zak Ahmed, a special guest, and co-hosting this episode with me is name partner Rahul. I had He-Man, now I have you. How lucky am I? Uh, so Zach, for all the viewers and listeners who are just tuning in and who might not know you very well, can you just introduce yourself to them?
Yeah, absolutely. We got this microphone. I don't know if it's actually working. I'm going to talk into it anyway.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, it's working fine.
Okay. So, yeah, Zak Ahmed. I am a solutions engineer. So I think I am the perfect person to be on this podcast. Yeah, so I graduated from a computer science degree. So not that formal engineering degree, a little bit of a twist, but I graduated from that in 2019. And I had moved into a solution engineering role in the software space. So a little bit different from traditional sales engineering, being in something more along the lines of discrete manufacturing, but I went into the software space, grew up around sales, grew up around software, so I naturally kind of just stuck in that space. And then I don't know, how long have I been? I've been at SalesForce for almost 2 years now. So that's been a lot of fun. And then on the side, I do a lot of pro bono work along the lines of the next generation of sales engineers, networking events, making sure that the next generation even knows what sales engineering is. I remember being a college student having absolutely no idea what to do because I knew that I wasn't a very technical person. However, I liked being close to technology, which is why I went into computer science. But I just knew I liked relationships. I liked people. I liked speaking. And I knew none of my classmates knew what it was. So I think this podcast is excellent. I think what you guys are doing at McGill is great. I think the pre-sales collective is awesome. I think all of this stuff that's starting to emerge and has emerged in the last year is going to do a lot of good for the sort of the next generation of engineering students.
Wow, thank you for your introduction. Really, really interesting. Now, first of all, for people because we know this, but maybe like some people who are watching this don't. But how did you just decide to transition from computer science into sales engineering, since it's very uncommon for that transition to actually occur?
I'm sure like most of your peers were doing internships in like developer roles. You're probably surrounded by those kinds of people, right? So how did you kind of make that switch?
So I knew I wanted to work in big tech, but I also knew that I'm not the best like computer science student. I'm actually just not a great student overall. And comp sci in Canada is pretty aggressive and it's pretty competitive. So getting a job at a big tech company, like if I wanted to be at Google or if I wanted to be at Salesforce, for example, as a software engineer, I had to study like 3 or 4 times more than I was. And I just wasn't up for that. So what ended up happening was I had done a summer internship at Salesforce as almost like a web designer. So it's just really light stuff, CSS, HTML, with nothing really heavy or computer sciencey about that. But I was creating web products and customer facing assets for the sales organization. So that's where I got exposed to sales engineers, because I was creating all these different assets for them to use in product demonstrations and things like that. So once I saw a former engineer in a sales role, I was kind of like, okay, this is it, because they were doing something close to technology, but they were also speaking like a salesperson and managing relationships, but they also didn't have a quota to carry over their shoulders too, to make sure that they hit every single month. So there's a lot of really nice aspects that I saw to that type of life, and also what it could do for somebody earlier in their career. And that's kind of where I just made the mental decision in college to stay on track and finish comp sci, to get that technical perspective. But I knew right out of school, there's no way I'm applying for a single software engineering or developer job.
Oh, wow. So your heart was like set. You were not going to do a single technical job.
Yeah, no, I couldn't, even if I wanted to.
And was that after your first internship, or what was that at Salesforce, or was it a different company?
Yeah, the first was at Salesforce. I had actually grown up. Way I got that job was I had grown up sort of developing Salesforce applications. So I know I say I hate being a developer, but I had done that. I was building Salesforce is just one of those software tools where you can configure it point and click. So I was building these point and click apps for like really small dental clinics and optometry clinics. So that's how I got exposed to that Salesforce world.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were just looking to hire somebody a little bit more technical to help with some configuration. So it was after my first summer that I knew what I wanted to do, but I knew it was going to be something Salesforce related prior.
Okay. So before you didn't know whether it was like more the technical side or like, the more salesy side of Salesforce. You just knew it was like, it was Salesforce. And then kind of after that,
Yeah,
you
it
kind
was
of,
like it was going to be Salesforce. It was going to be maybe Google. I wanted to have a tech
so
startup.
you were going to, okay.
Just something, yeah, something techy. That's what I really cared about at the end of the day.
Yeah. And then how would you say, I guess like building off what you said, right? After your first internship, you realized, okay, I want to go into, this kind of sales engineering type of career, but first I'm going to finish this comp sci degree, get that technical perspective. Like how important is that technical perspective? And like kind of, did you, like, what were the benefits of your comp sci degree, like, for your internships, your career, so on?
Yeah, I think about that a lot because I always kind of question a big theme of people in our age group is work for yourself, drop out of school.
Right.
College degrees, are they worth it? So I think about that a lot. And I mean, the one thing that a comp sci degree really taught me how to do is work really hard, but also find shortcuts to a solution. So comp sci for me was a lot of, and I think for a lot of people is copying, pasting code off the internet, trying to debug and make things work and combine your friend's code with your code. And it's just a lot of hacking and tweaking. At least that's what it was for me. So that's something that had actually stuck with me in sales engineering because I'm building proof of concepts. I'm not building like production type software that is actually going to get implemented on the customer site, right? It's kind of just, this is what it would look like. This is the art of the possible. As long as I can show it on my screen or on a projector, it can work. It can be fake buttons for all I care. As long as it tells a story, it'll work. So those are the things that stuck with me from comp sci. I think the other thing hasn't really helped me yet, but I know it will eventually, is when I'm in front of an IT audience. So in the role that I'm in, I'm more frequently in front of business people that own business units. And then sometimes there's a lot of objections around, okay, well, how hard is this going to be implemented for IT? This seems like a really big lift. So being able to speak that language a little bit, at least to relate to the developers, the guys that are going to have to be setting it up, is an advantage that I feel like I wouldn't have if I didn't come from a comp sci degree. And it's more so when they look at my LinkedIn and they're like, oh, you came from computer science. Okay. They'll open up a little bit, but I truthfully don't find myself having to really get deep in the weeds very often.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess, I know you joined us at our info session last semester and you got to talk about your career, but for those who didn't attend, like, can we just like go over what exactly you do at Salesforce, like what your job is, what your day-to-day looks like, that kind of thing? Just provide context.
Yeah. So I sort of wear, I feel like a lot of different hats, and I'm not really completely an expert in any domain as of right now. But pretty much what I do is I work on the pre-sales organization at Salesforce. So what that means is, and also within our enterprise business unit. So we have these different business units and just all software companies. And it depends on the size of the company that you're selling into. So enterprise is like the largest with the largest amount of employees, which end up being a little bit, deals that are a little bit more strategic, require more tinkering around in relationships and a lot more people on calls, and just it's a larger effort to bring a deal in than maybe a deal in the small business space. Not all the time, but pretty frequently. So I work in that customer segment. Pretty much what I do is I help companies who are facing an issue or a roadblock get past that roadblock. and I use software as the means of doing it. So that's really to sum it up. But at the end of the day, companies come to Salesforce because they have a goal. It could be because they want to hit $1 million in revenue this year. It might be because they want to decrease attrition. It might be because, they want to increase their customer experience scores. Whatever the case is, they have a goal. And oftentimes they either don't know how to achieve it or there's something in the way of them achieving it. So what my job is, along with the rest of the team that I work with, is to really get into the weeds, understand their process, understand their goals, and just try to figure out why they're not able to get there naturally, and then position something that's going to help them achieve their end goal. So it's really about, we call it discovery, which is that first call, kind of doing a little bit of detective work, right? All of these sales engineering role plays, discovery is a really big part of it. Arguably, it's probably the most important part of the job, is getting down to what the issue is. And then after that, it's okay, how are we going to get you to this end state? And so then it's a lot of storyboarding, and it's a lot of, we create these proof of concepts for the software. We also do personas, and we do this big presentation at the end of it. And then we present it to them. And then that's kind of where I drop off. I don't have to deal with the post production of that, which is oftentimes very, very messy. How are we going to set this up? That's sort of where consultants come in. And I couldn't be a consultant. That's a very hard job, I would think. I did it for a summer and I didn't like it at all. It's like, you actually have to make this happen now for the customer. And that's not responsibility that I want. But I love painting those pictures. And the best thing about it is that no engagement lasts more than 2 weeks. So it's constant. It's like a revolving door of new situations, new use cases, new people, new companies. So that's what I do. And I just sort of rinse and repeat that.
So it's interesting, actually, that you mentioned consulting, because I was going to ask you about that. So the first part of when you were kind of describing what you do, I obviously, I've never worked as a consultant, but from what I hear, that's fairly similar to tech consulting. For example, companies like Accenture and stuff, right? They provide tech solutions to clients. So how is that different from what you do, from what you guys do?
Yeah, there's so many types of consultants. That's the first thing. And I don't even know all of them. You've got consultants like consultants at McKinsey who consult the world's top CEOs on business strategy.
Yeah, but right.
Strategy, right? Then you have consultants that are new grads out of an undergrad program, and their job is to set up software in a matter of a few sprints. And then you have management, and then you have sort of finance consultants, portfolio consultants. So that name really gets thrown around a lot. And in the tech space, the difference between what I do and what I don't even know what the official term for them, but technology consultants do, is I paint the picture. No, what do I do? I tell the story, they paint the picture.
Okay.
So oftentimes than not, we don't work hand in hand. So it's not okay, what did Zach, the solution engineer, say to you? What did he show you? It's, okay, what product did you end up buying? Now let's get down to the use case. And they will refer back to the story that I painted for them in terms of, this is how we want things to work. This is what we want the journey to be like and the experience to be like. But I never really cross paths with the consultant. If I do, I'll pull them into conversations when I have an objection around how long is this going to take to set up. We're really worried we don't have the resource to do it. Then I'll bring a consultant in, and they'll kind of, calm them down a little bit. They'll tell them that it's a matter of 3 sprints, whatever the case is. We're not really part of the selling motion. So it's like pre-sales and then post-sales is the way to think about it.
Okay. So both roles are kind of part of the same pipeline though. Sales, solutions engineers, and then consultants kind of after that.
Yeah, you're touching the same project.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just correct me if I'm wrong, if I misunderstood this. So basically you're saying you're the journey and they're the destination kind of thing?
Yeah, I would say that. I would say that's a good way of putting it.
Okay.
That's a nice analogy. Yeah.
Because that's how I understood it. And,
I think that's...
Zach, you talked a bit about your pro bono work about giving people the knowledge of what sales engineering is, or teaching people like how like people who have potential in this to help that potential grow, people who like me a few months ago didn't know much about sales engineering. So I just want to know, if someone just told you right now to define sales engineering, what would you define it as?
Such a hard question. Every time I get asked that, I have a different answer.
I'll make it tougher for you. 3
Okay.
words or less.
3.
Okay, well that kind of makes it easy. Actually, I would just say problem
Okay.
solvers.
Okay, problem solvers.
Right.
Yeah, I would say problem solvers is probably the best way to put it.
But like, how would you like what, I guess, because I would define like an engineer, for example, like a technical engineer or even like a computer scientist.
Yeah.
That could kind of go into that category as well, right?
Yeah.
Like what really differentiates it? You have more than 3 words this time, FYI.
Yeah. Okay. Sales engineering is one of those things where you really get to tap into your creative side. So it's not in the sense of, if I'm a product engineer, and I have so much respect for product engineers. I think product is probably one of the coolest parts of technology. It's working in product, being a software engineer, and building things that don't exist. But your imagination can only go so far there if you're not the lead product manager, right? If you're not in charge.
If it's not your vision, right?
If it's not your vision. And I'm strictly speaking on the fact that this is something you do 3, 4, 5 years out of school. But there are product managers that are like 19 years old that are kicking ass. So I'm just talking about the norm.
Yeah.
You get to allow your creative juices to flow in the sense that, so a great example would be Disney. So with a sales engineer, the encounter that we had with Disney a few years ago, I wasn't part of this experience, but I wish I was the sales engineer. Bob Iger was the CEO of Disney at the time. So this is 4 years ago. He stepped down, I think, last year, but Bob Iger invited the SalesForce team because they were working on this collaborative project to the Disney headquarters. And they're showing them around, and they were showing them the original Disney structure, which it's funny because they have the 7 dwarves as structures, and then they have the building on top of it. So it's the 7 dwarves that are carrying the Disney building. And it was a little bit symbolic because it's like, 7 dwarves, Snow White carried Disney because it's one of their first major films.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And they had Walt Disney's office in this building. And part of Bob Iger's tour is to show everybody Walt Disney's office. So he brought the SalesForce team up, the account executives, the sales engineers, the solution engineers, and they showed them, because when Walt Disney passed away, they kept all of his belongings in that office. So nobody actually has that office. The family came in and took, personal things, but in terms of maybe shoes or jackets or pictures or, his tools, pencils, notebooks, whatever it was, they kept it all there. And Disney's a big storyteller, just like SalesForce. So Bob was telling a story of where Disney came from, what its values are, how it got to where it is, and how it wants to continue its existing traditions moving forward. And it was all about telling a story. And the way that sales engineers oftentimes get an opportunity to pitch to customers is in the same way of telling a story, where sometimes it's hard to do this now, but we create stories and journeys and videos and as much as we can do in a remote world to make our customers feel like they're part of something larger than the project itself. And sales engineering is one of those situations where we get to essentially give tours, like in real life tours of Walt Disney's office. I use that as an analogy, but what the future of your business could possibly look like, right? And where you could possibly go. And that entire project was really cool. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about, I guess I wasn't really the engineer on it, and I heard about it on a public forum, so maybe I will talk about it. That project was for turning, and it was, again, using software as the enabler to do this. What they had realized was Disney, and this is actually a good example of some of the problems that sales engineers get to solve in the software space. Disney was having a hard time holding on to the next generation. So it's sort of Gen Z, right? A lot of these film and motion pictures came out. I think maybe my generation might have been the last. It mostly resonated with like millennials, and whatever the generation before millennials were. So it was hard. They were having a hard time grasping onto Gen Z. And the other thing that was really difficult from an immersive experience perspective was that they were also having a hard time grabbing onto the part of the country that lived near or below the poverty line, didn't have the money to travel to Walt Disney World or Walt Disneyland. So what they started to do was they started to look at dying industries, one of them being the movie theater business. The project was and the proposal was to buy up a bunch of movie theaters and turn them into immersive Disney experiences across the country. So having almost like a little tiny mini Disney World in your city.
Wow.
Which is really going to help grab the attention of a new customer segment that really hasn't been part of the Disney experience, like the historical Disney experience that we all know. But also create brand new sources and streams of revenue. Now, what's going to drive this entire initiative is software. So we need to figure out a way to make all of this work. So what does the ticketing process look like? How are we going to manage headcount in the building? How are we going to manage our staff? How are we going to manage the content that gets pushed out and release schedules to these different sites? Software is the enabler for all that. So being able to work on projects like that, I know this is a very long-winded answer as to why sales engineering is a little bit different, but you told me I can give you more than 3 words for a story. Those are some of the reasons why sales engineering just completely outshined for me any type of developer or product job.
It's kind of like the scope, right? Like with a developer or product job, the scope is obviously like the product you're working on.
Yeah.
But like, for example, like you said, you see a new client or a new like potential client every couple of weeks. They have like an entirely different problem.
Yeah.
And like you got to think outside the box for each one of those. Okay. Wow.
So would you say that, like going back on what Rahul just said, so considering that every client is different, would you say that every workday for you is different, or is there some routine to it at some point?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time, so right now I'm working within manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the challenges that I see in the manufacturing industry are pretty consistent among automotive industry, manufacturing. So a lot of it is a lot of similar conversations. It's like, hey, we're having this problem. I was like, okay, well, this company I was working with last week had the same problem. That's how we solved it. So there is, it's not always brand new. There's a lot of repetition sometimes, but repetition can be good because it allows you to not have to put too much effort into certain projects and focus your attention and effort on some of the more transformative projects that are going on. Because at the end of the day, we only have 24 hours a day. So, we can't work. I mean, sales engineers sometimes have multiple projects going on, that always do actually, like 5, 6, 7, 10 projects at once. So it's nice in that sense, and you get to start to build some industry expertise. Because of the repetition, I would more so say, Hassan, every quarter is different. Mm-hmm. Because right now it's the beginning of the quarter, and my focus is on understanding the manufacturing industry because I'm brand new to it. And trying to work with my customers, build relationships to figure out where they're trying to go, what's stopping them from getting there, how they're transitioning into the remote work world. And then maybe the next quarter is going to be, all right, let's get our heads down and get some deal cycles going. And do some product education and give them some ideas and have a lot of discovery calls to help them understand and dissect what these issues are, and how we might be able to solve them. And then quarter 3 could be all about, all right, let's put our money where our mouth is and put together incredible presentations and just wow all these customers. And quarter 4 could be all about closing. So it's not literally like that, but as you go throughout the year, your priority changes and the context of your work changes too.
So if you're working on multiple projects at once,
yeah,
do you ever feel like you're getting like that you feel like confused since you're working on multiple ones? Like what if you confuse one for the other? Like, I don't know if you understand my question.
It's happened to me.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll call people by their name that isn't their name, or introduced myself on a call to a customer and completely dropped the wrong company name. It happens sometimes. It shouldn't happen. Actually, I should be a lot better. But yeah, I think that that's sort of a challenge that's going to hit you regardless of what career you go into after you graduate. I hated project management and time management and being organized. I always hated doing that, but I kind of have to now because I'll call a company by their wrong name and completely mess up the conversation. So it's just one of those things that, yeah, it's going to happen eventually and then inevitably, but you just got to do what you can to stay organized and stay on top of it. Eventually it will go away.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
There's a question I have, Zach, that I ask every single guest I have on this podcast. And I want to hear your answer in particular because I don't know, like you have a certain passion for sales engineering that like seems pretty huge. So basically, someone told me this a while ago, and they told me that salespeople are often perceived as those greedy and money hungry people. And I want to see your take on that in terms of like for sales engineers, like how is that not true? Like obviously this is obviously not true, but why is it not true for you? Like I want your take on it basically.
I mean, in sales, you kind of have to be driven by money. You have quotas to hit. You have to close. So a lot of salespeople are money driven, and that's okay. Everybody has different motivating factors. I think where I would challenge that statement is the greediness and this sort of salespeople have that sleaze bag type of perception.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they try to pull one over on you, right? Like it's like, well, what are they hiding in the
yeah, exactly. It's like with the people you see in the movies that try
to like the car salesman especially, right? Like that's the stereotype. Yeah.
So you see a lot of that, I'm not gonna lie. But the sales guys at the top aren't like that. So those types of people, they cap out. They stop progressing their career because you can't close a $7 million deal if you're just super greedy and you aren't intelligent and you don't have the customer's best interest in mind. Because when it's that type of money, there's lots of decision makers, there's lots of people in these conversations, and you're easily read. I'm not saying that the best salespeople aren't driven by money, because they are. You have to be. It's hard. Sales is really hard, especially under like software sales is really difficult. And yeah, you'll definitely see. I know some salespeople that are. I'm just like, how do you close business? You don't care about them at all. And they close business, but they also cap out in their career. Sales engineering is a bit different, where people go into, in the software space, people go into sales engineering because, sales engineers in software, for the most part, I can just say for SalesForce specifically, we don't have a quota to hit, right? We're not responsible for closing the deal. It's our sales counterpart that's responsible for that. Sales engineers sort of like sales engineering, one, because it allows them to be technical and close to product. But I think the other side of it is that from a lifestyle perspective, the money is more consistent. So a tech sales guy could make 400 to 900K in a year on a good year. And then on a bad year, he can make 120K or 50K. Whereas a sales engineer could make 250K regardless of how much money closes and comes through at the end of the day.
Really?
So, don't you have commissions though?
Yeah, that was my question too.
So depending on the company, you'll have commissions.
Oh, okay.
But, the reality of commissions is they're actually bonuses. So it's like if your organization, so if your boss's boss hits their number, then you get paid out a certain amount of money, but that's capped oftentimes. It's like, because when you get a job, they're like, okay, this is going to be what your base salary is, and this is what your bonus is going to be. They call it OTE, on target earnings. So they'll throw this number in front of you, and then they'll break it down. They'll break it down in terms of like, what's your split? So an OTE of 100K with a 60-40 split means that your base salary is 60K a year. And then your quarterly bonuses are going to sum up to 40K.
Like guaranteed? Or it's like that depends.
So it's like if your boss's boss's boss hits 100% of their quota, then you get 100% of what you were get that quarter. If they hit 70% of the number, then you get 70% of what you're going to get that quarter. So
the 40K is the max, like the cap.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's tax in Canada, which kind of beats up.
Oh yeah. That's interesting though, because I don't know, it might be a software hardware thing, but I guess I always assumed commission just meant like it's like directly linked to like how many deals, or not, because I guess you're not the closer, or maybe you are, but like how many deals you interact with, like personally, right?
Yeah. So even it's so weird. I don't get paid on how many deals I interact with or how much money of that even closes.
Really?
I feel like I could be so bad at my job. And like, I don't understand.
Like
I don't get it, to be honest. So I can explain, salespeople get paid commission, and it gets very complicated sometimes, but to sum it down, it's like, okay, for every deal you close, you get like 2%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's like standard. And then depending on the company, that can be capped or that could be uncapped. On the sales engineering side, so the way that sales engineers are typically, now this is just from podcasts that I listen to about sales engineering at other companies, the way that the business tracks our impact is actually more like, okay, our sales organization had $60 million in the pipe this year, which means we were working on $60 million worth of deals. How much of that did your sales engineers touch? So we call it deal contribution. Maybe out of the 60K that we had in pipe, all of the sales engineers in our company impacted $30 million of that.
Okay. So when you say impact,
what
do you mean?
Like, okay, did you do a demo? Did you do a discovery? Did you like touch the deal in any way? Even one conversation or one email.
So basically interacted with it in any kind of way.
Exactly.
Okay.
You don't like, I want to know what companies pay their sales engineers on commission. Because
so isn't this kind of a commission? Because it's based on how many you interact with, right? Or like how much?
That doesn't change my comp. That doesn't change my pay.
Oh, okay. So it's how much all the sales engineers interact.
Exactly. And the reason that it's used is more so for the business to make decisions on if they need to hire more sales engineers,
right,
or, whether or not the sales engineers are even effective, and they need that business unit because they're a cost, right? It costs money to have employees. So that's kind of like the way that the business justifies and tries to understand where to spend money and where to invest.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of good, right? In one way, because, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but like from my perspective, like a commission might add a bit more
incentive.
It adds incentive, but it also can add like stress, I guess, right? Like if I don't, like you're put under a bit more pressure, but again, like you can make more money, like Hassan said, with like more incentive, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, so the way that it's sort of seen at SalesForce and in most SaaS companies is like, okay, if you want that commission, you go become an AE, you become an account executive. SEs, people that start their careers actually as SEs become incredible account executives, incredible salespeople, because they just know how to talk to the customer in a way. Like when I speak to customers, that I can't be salesy. I'm not really salesy because I don't care if it closes. I do care, but like that's not the role that I'm supposed to play. The role I'm supposed to play is I'm here to help you. So it's almost like a customer support agent. You can kind of think about like my tone with them. Like I care about your business. I'm like almost like I'm like one of you. I'm one of your employees.
Like a helpful, more like just like there to help type of thing.
Here to help, here to guide. And so because sales engineers have that, when you move into sales, you come across really nice. You don't come across as that sleaze bag. So you do pretty well in sales, and you know the products in and out. But like the narrative traditionally is, yeah, if you want that uncapped commission, if you want to make a whole bunch of money and have that quota to carry, the price of making that kind of money is having the quota to carry.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like sales engineers, it's like, okay, maybe a lot of AEs that I know had a few bad years where like, you know, I went and making 450K a year, 250K, whatever the number was.
Oh.
And they're like, yeah, I had a bad year and I made like 70 grand. And it's like, yeah, and my mortgage is like 4K, but like I couldn't carry it. So it's like, okay, you know, when it's that unstable and that unsteady, sometimes depending on the type of person you are, like, okay, maybe a career in sales engineering might be better because I get to still be in the same world, but the money is a little bit more consistent. Might be less than what I used to make, but I don't have to worry about where my next paycheck is going to come, or carrying this quota, or getting let go or fired because I didn't hit
Yeah. Like a bit less like performance pressure, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's obviously still like, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but what I want to know is, if it's not a commission system, what differentiates the top SE from the newbie SE?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
$1 million question. I mean, so the interesting thing is I asked all of my leadership that question when I got hired, because I wanted to be really good. So I was like, you know, what are those differentiating factors? What does excellence look like? What does greatness look like at this role? And the truth is, there's no set answer from a metric standpoint. Which is what I mean by metric standpoint is you can't look at a dashboard and you can't say, oh, this person hit $25 million of pipeline impacted this month. Unfortunately, not all the time, but unfortunately, some of that success, some of that number could be because you just happen to manage some AEs that have a very fruitful territory or have a very fruitful customer base. And so you could be a horrible SE and impact this deal and screw it all up, and then on the dashboard you'll still look like you're at the top. Also, the other thing that another big sales number is pipe progression, which pretty much means out of the pipeline that we have, how much of it is advancing and moving forward and getting closer to the close. Mm-hmm. SEs, so if you think about a deal in, like, let's say, for example, there are 8 different stages to a deal. Stage 1 is qualification, then you go SE discovery, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. Pipe progression is like, are we moving our deals through that cadence? SEs kind of drop off halfway through that, because after that it's about negotiations and it's about quoting and it's about all this other stuff. So it's not about painting a picture, painting a journey. That happens pretty early on, and it's not our responsibility. We can totally, like, if we have the relationships and we really care about our customers and we really care about the account and we're super intertwined in the business, and yeah, we'll be there all the way through. But for the majority of us that are being leveraged in a transactional way, which is, I'm here, here's the value, okay, goodbye. I'm here, here's the value, okay, goodbye. They kind of drop off at the beginning. And so that's the other number. Pipe progression is what they look at. And that actually just comes down to how good are your AEs. Or like, there's so many different things. So on a spreadsheet, you can't really, it's hard to indicate that. But what I would say is, like, it's all soft skills. It's all value proposition. If you want to see what a good SE looks like, you can't just look at a dashboard like a salesperson. They can email you what their, I don't know this because I'm not a sales manager, but I would assume, like, they have metrics that they use. They have metrics that they put on their resume for how much business they close, quota expectations, whether or not they exceeded it. SEs don't have that type of number. We always get evaluated on our presentation skills and our ability to articulate value. So it's more so in person, on the job stuff. So you won't know greatness until you see it.
Right. Is it like less quantitative then, I guess, in terms of the metrics? Yeah. I guess there are no metrics, but like
there's quantitative metrics for sure. But you're not gonna be able to see who's the best from that. You have to really understand who has the skill on the calls, in front of the customer, who can explain value. The other thing in the software space, now this is all like strictly for software. I have no idea on the hardware side, like in HVAC, for example,
Right.
engineers have to close. So I have no idea about how that world works.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a completely different.
Yeah, like, I think
Volume,
fundamentals are the same about problem solving, and the way that you approach things, but you're responsible for pipe progression and pipe and closing and stuff. So maybe they get commission. But the other thing with software is like, I think this is just with everything. Customers aren't going to buy at that dollar amount if they don't understand the value. So you just can't get on and just like, when you show your friend an app, it's like you click here, you do this, you do that. This is where you click how to do this. It's like nobody cares. They're not going to sit through a presentation of you clicking through things. Paint a story and explain the value. What's it going to do for you? Like, yeah, sure. All of this information is here on one screen. What is it going to do for you? What's the value in having it all on one screen? That's what they're there to hear. So the sales engineers that know how to talk that way, that are very value heavy, we call it value proposition, are the ones that are really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I've heard that before, because like especially like a lot of comp sci engineering people, like when they like explain things, they probably get like stuck on the technicals a lot, or like they're excited about the technicals, right? Like this has this feature and like it can do all this stuff, but like what's even kind of more important to the customer or the client is like, at the end of the day, what's the value? Like what does it do? Right? Like forget about the underlying technique, what does it do? And then you can kind of delve into like some of the tech, I guess, like if they're interested and that kind of stuff, right?
Even with like IT, they'll be able to speak that language, like get into the weeds and understand the tech. But even what they care about is how much work is this going to be for me? Is this even going to work with our existing framework, our existing software solutions? How is this going to all set up?
Big picture thinking.
Exactly. And it's like, you got to explain the value that this might actually make your life easier. You don't go and start talking about HTTPS protocols with them. Unless they bring it up, and unless that's like actual question, they care about the value, regardless of the audience.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask about your internships, because I know you mentioned you interned at SalesForce because you worked on some of their products, but then I think after that you had some more like actual like solutions or sales engineering internships, right? At like I think Tech Canary, Click, and even SalesForce itself.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of our viewers are obviously like students looking to potentially get into the field. Like what was your like how's that experience for you? And then kind of what tips would you give for people looking to break into that industry kind of early?
Like those internships, what did they do for me? Internships are tough, especially when you don't have connections. I think if you have connections into things, you'll find your way in. If you don't have connections, it's hard, because you kind of limit yourself to job boards, whatever your school's got to offer.
Yeah.
Go on sites like Glassdoor and Indeed and Monster, and it is nerve-wracking and a little overwhelming. So with internships, I think the best advice that I've ever received on that front, especially if you're tapping into something for the very first time, is don't overthink it. If you want something, just ask somebody for it. Literally go on LinkedIn, find somebody you want to work for, find somebody with a management title for interns, and just send them a message. And you can find tons of like these basho messages online about how to ask somebody for their time, or email templates to use to ask somebody for a networking call for you to be taken into consideration for an internship. Tons of like things that you can do. It's literally a matter of copy and pasting. So just be aggressive on that front. You kind of like, if you want to go into sales engineering, regardless of you're in software, whatever, you still have to be a salesperson, to be honest with you. So go be a salesperson, go sell yourself. You kind of have to start by cold calling. You kind of have to start by cold emails. You kind of need to treat yourself like you're a business trying to find customers. And just go on LinkedIn, find some of those people that you'd like to work for, and then find templates on Google. Just Google like how to ask somebody for advice on LinkedIn. Build your network that way. That's one way to start. And the thing with that is that you're going to be surprised, because let's say you talk to 10 people, one of those people, two of those people, maybe three of those people are going to introduce you to their network, and it's just going to snowball. And before you know it, you're going to be in interviews, and you're not going to have to ask sometimes for an internship opportunity, because while it might not be them there at that point in time, there might be like, 6 months down the road when we have new internship positions open, your name is on our list because you have our resumes, so somebody will reach out to you. And it's just a matter of planting your seed in as many companies' recruiting inboxes as possible. And the most effective way to do that is just old fashioned way of asking for it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the way I would do
and
it.
like, I think like that's some great advice. Do you think, like, how vital were they for you to like get your full-time role? Like, are all the sales engineers you work with, like, did they all have internships in sales engineering? Or like, if someone doesn't end up getting an internship in sales engineering throughout their career, like, how hard do you think it might be like for them to actually break into that industry?
Getting an internship in sales engineering, like if you're in college, it doesn't. So most sales engineers are either former engineers or former salespeople. Because with sales engineering, you have to be able to have both perspectives. So what recruitment does and what leadership does, they look at somebody who has one of those perspectives with the intention of coaching them on the other one. And there's two types of really great sales engineers. There's ones that are very technical focused, and there's ones that are very salesy, both of which are incredibly successful. Neither is better
Right.
than the other. And then you'll have the rare few that are good at both. But that's traditionally kind of like the career path to sales engineering. So now with what you're doing, students are going to start to be able to think about this a lot earlier. And so if you can get a sales engineering position internship, it's going to be hard in college because the software industry hasn't really opened up to that idea just yet. They will soon. Now they're doing sales engineering for new grads. Like I know Train does sales engineering internships for students, right?
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. But the other way to do it, there's no rush to your career also, is go do a standard sales job right out of school. Learn that, do that for 2 years. Because then you can go easily become a sales engineer because you understand how to sell. So it's a matter of just learning the product, which is teachable. Oftentimes,
right.
Sales is always going to be that skill that you have to learn on the job. You're not going to learn it in school. And so companies realize that the technical side is the coachable part. So they oftentimes target those with something that you can't coach, which is sales and teach. So go get a few years of sales experience. That's kind of like what I always say. And one of the things that I wish I had going into this is I wish I had some sales experience, because you're in front of the customer, right? So you got to really be comfortable in front of them. Move dynamically. You got to be able to objection handle. You got to be able to introduce people and politely shut ideas down. And there's all these like little mannerisms that you've got to learn, that you learn as a salesperson. So that's what I would say if you're a student, is like, don't just go for sales engineering roles. Have sales engineering as the end destination. Figure out how you're going to get there.
Okay.
Right.
So you don't think sales is teachable? Like, it's not coachable? Even by experience? Like, let's say, obviously, the way I'd see it is, let's say you recruited as a sales engineer, you're a more technical person, more than like, you're more technically oriented than you are salesy. Wouldn't you think that those companies would know, and they think, oh, maybe he learned on the job?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what I'm trying to say is like, you learn sales on the job. So as a student, unless you've got side hustles or you're exposed to something where you're in a sales role, it's tough to convince a company to create a sales engineering role for you.
Okay.
or put you into one. So like sales is just, it's always on the job. When I was doing my training, most of my training was actually on the job, so they kind of just threw me in. But previous to that, the only way to test my sales capability was to put me through role play situations. So I did role play situations for like 6 months in tandem with customer facing meetings. And then when I went fully live and I owned my own business, it's like those 6 months never happened. I didn't know shit. I did not know how to sell. It's different. You can't mock that experience. You can read all about it and you can have people coach you and tell you what to do, but until you're in it, you're not going to know what you're doing at first. You've got to like miss a lot. You've got to fail a lot. You got to figure out what you're doing wrong before you can do something right. And no simulation is going to get you ready for that just yet. Eventually, right, there's going to be software and AI that will sort of take that place and at least aid simulated sales abilities, but
just like models, clients, and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
But speaking of AI,
yeah,
and I've had this conversation before, but do you think that artificial intelligence will be able to replace sales engineering one day?
Yeah, how future-proof is it? That's a great question.
Like we all know how like the potential is limitless for AI, but would it be like where I'm not talking like 100 years, I'm talking like 20, 30 years, 40 down the line.
What do you think? What you've interviewed people before me. What do you think? What have they said?
They told me that we'll just have to wait and see, but it's very possible.
20 years, Hassan? Is that what because I think within 100 years for sure. I think within 500 years, none of us are going to be doing it.
I never told them specifically how, like in I didn't give them a time frame.
Okay.
But the way I'd see it is 100 years is too much. Have you seen how technology's been developing?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In 100 years, like none of us are going to be doing anything probably. Like AI is going to be doing everything. But 20 years? Oh,
no, I'm talking about sales engineering though, Rahul.
Yeah, sales engineering, yeah, 20 years.
Take 30 to 40. Do you think that there's going to be that initiative of like sales engineering being replaced?
Yeah, I don't know. I think so. I'm not sure.
What do you think, Zach?
I think this is an interesting topic because I sell AI. Okay. I'm a sales engineer for AI. So
the irony.
No, selling your own
you know what's funny?
Potential replacement.
Yeah, exactly.
Making my own potential replacement. What's funny is that I get that question asked a lot when I'm pitching AI to customers because they're always like, "Oh wait, can I use it? Like, is this going to replace me? Or am I not going to need to hire more outbound salespeople or more customer service agents because AI can take care of all of this?" The answer that I have to say is that no, and the AI is a tool used to make their lives easier. It's a tool to assist them in their job, not to replace them. But I truthfully feel like, I don't know how much you guys
let the truth out.
This kind of goes into a little bit more of like an abstract topic, but I don't know if you guys have heard of like Web3, the next like version of the internet. But
yeah,
I think that once technology like that comes along, I won't have a job for sure. Maybe at the beginning of it, but as soon as there's like adoption worldwide, I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime, but sales engineering, I don't know. That's such a tough question. I think up until Web 3.0 comes out, I'll be okay. But AI, like it's such a weird question, man, because I always have to deflect and take this the opposite way with my customers. But
yeah, because usually you got to convince people that it's fine.
I would see it as I would see it as something that helps us be better at what we do, not replaces us.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. But I think like Hassan said, we'll have to wait, and especially with, like you said,
it's Web like 3.0. Okay, here's the thing. Okay, this is pre-Web 3.0. In an abstract world, this is sort of the end goal for AI. Not the end goal, but a goal that's in our lifetime. It's going to be an extension of ourselves. So just like we have a digital form of ourselves, a digital identity being our entire social media breadcrumb footprint,
Mhm.
we're going to have an AI extension of us as well. Okay.
Right. Like an AI version of ourselves?
An
Like
AI,
each.
I wouldn't say version, I would say extension.
Okay.
Because as soon as I die, my social media presence doesn't continue to build. It still lives on, but like it's an extension. It's like a limb.
Okay. Yeah.
So when the time comes along when I have an AI, people have AI extensions of themselves, they won't need to be convinced on what decision, they won't need to have other people convince them on what decisions to make, because that AI extension is going to do all of the processing to understand what
Right.
the best path forward
Mhm.
is. So I could argue that there's a case that there won't even need to be salespeople one day.
Well, your AI extension would be the one giving the pitch, right? So it's kind of like,
Not my customer's AI extension would be the one telling him which path to go.
That's
yeah, but the
exactly what
thing
I
is
was saying.
that if each different company's sales engineers,
Yeah.
if each of their AI extensions, because they're AI, so each one of them is equally smart, right? So all of them are trying to pitch to the client's AI extension. So it's kind of like an even, because like the AI extension won't necessarily be able to decide what to do because it has a bunch of different AI extensions,
I'm
pitching a
following.
product. You know what I mean?
Way to make it more complex, bro.
No,
I don't even know if that made sense, but
no, it made sense. So the weird thing is that once Web 3.0 comes out, there's going to be very little decision making required.
Mm.
yeah, it's all going to be the AI extensions.
But yeah, the way I'd see it is exactly how Zach said it. It's like, let's say there's an AI extension of yourself. That AI extension could be smart enough one day to be like, yeah, this decision would be more ideal
Yeah,
for you. Like you'd like this decision more.
like it just takes in all the products, processes them, and spits out the answer. It doesn't even
Not
need to.
not just the products, it takes you into account, how you
Yeah,
think.
well, yeah, exactly. So it doesn't need the pitches, basically, right? It already
Exactly.
knows what the right product.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
exactly is what I'm saying.
that's a great point, Zach. AI extensions.
Yeah.
When are we gonna have those though?
I don't
Like
know.
30 years.
My
We'll never know. Like
Yeah.
2020 has been a wild year. We'll never know what happens
20.
in 10, 20
I'll
years.
bet I'm putting this going on YouTube, right, Hassan? I'm just gonna say it on record, 2050, we'll all have our AI extensions personally with us.
2050.
Okay.
Max. Yeah.
I
We'll
agree.
see. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can see
2050.
that. I mean, if we don't, so I don't know. Do you guys see like Neuralink, like what Elon?
Yeah. I was gonna, as soon as you said AI extension, I was gonna mention, so do you mean
Neuralink.
Neuralink, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe it might not be Neuralink, but that concept of being able to tap into a consciousness and understand human consciousness is going to be the foundation for this whole AI extension thing. Because now
That's
you
true.
like you have quantitative metric data of a person's consciousness, how they make decisions. Like it's hard to wrap your head around. So the second that you have that type of data and you can make sense of it and understand why people make decisions and why things happen to people,
Mm.
you get to create that model.
Yeah.
So like Neuralink is that sort of hardware bit that enables this whole thing that like opens up now this extension world. So I have no idea when Neuralink's gonna hit the market, but that's gonna be it.
I
Whatever.
think one of the biggest barriers for Neuralink is like convincing people to like get a hole in their skull, right? Because like other than that, the tech, I saw the demo. There was like the pig, like I don't know, did you see the demo? Like with the Neuralink and the pig, and then it was like, yeah, it's kind of weird.
You gotta also remember that laser eye surgery at one point was so abstract and people would never ever allow.
Yeah, like let me shine a laser in your eye. Yeah, that's true.
Cut a slit in my eye. No way. And now it's so normal.
Huh.
Heart surgery, there was a period in time where that was like absolutely no way. Let me die. Right? It's like mass adoption, herd mentality. Well, just take care of that.
Okay, yeah, I think so. 2050 is a safe bet. Then I'll stick with
I
that.
think that's a safe bet. I think maybe sooner.
Yeah,
Wow. Honestly, we can go on and on about this, honestly.
yeah.
But Bringing it back though,
Yeah.
to sales in general. Zach, I also want to know. I asked you this during the when you gave out when you did the event with us in fall. But obviously, to the people listening, is I know that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Like the job. Can you describe, if obviously you don't mind, what a bad day looks like for you, or what a bad day looked like for you? Should I say a bad experience, basically?
Oh yeah, I remember
Yeah.
this question.
Yeah. I don't know what do you guys remember what I said? I don't remember.
I have a faint memory. I can't remember the specific scenario though that you said.
I believe it was something that had to
I
do.
told a story. I told a story about
Yes,
the deal that
exactly.
worked. Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to tell a story? Or do you want me to just explain like overall high level?
I mean, we're interviewing you, so obviously a story. I'd like a story. That's what I know.
I would forget it anyway. So yeah.
Oh, wow, this is a wild. Okay, so this was the story. So oftentimes we're in like these different competitive situations where we compete against other vendors. So what happened was that we had this big demo for some product, and the way that enterprise demos work is oftentimes not, especially the big ones. You have a champion at a company, right? And they're sort of like rooting for you because they want you to be the software that they end up working with. So they help you with the pitch. They sort of teach you, okay, who's going to be in the audience? How do you win them over, right? These different champions. So I had been working with a champion to prepare a pitch to the board of directors of a company. And we had gone through multiple dry runs and rehearsals. We had gone through different strategy planning sessions. The whole sort of like prep for this was maybe 2-3 weeks with like 6 or 7 conversations. We're feeling confident before the actual pitch. And so we get on the actual pitch and I'm presenting and I get all of these objections. And they're objections that the champion told me would never come. And she had pretty much probed me and prepped me to say all of the wrong things. And so as I'm presenting, I'm like, I'm starting to feel off about it. And I'm still like trying to, keep my energy up. My counterpart searches her up on LinkedIn. I don't know why this didn't happen in the first place, but
And now I remember.
all of these Microsoft certifications on her profile. And we put 2 and 2 together. And what we realized was that this person wanted the company to buy Microsoft so bad, but was forced to have SalesForce be in the pitch competition, that they had essentially manipulated us to completely shit the bed on the final presentation.
I remember now as well.
Yeah, now I get.
Yeah,
That's crazy, dude.
That was
crazy.
now that okay, that doesn't happen all the time. I can't believe that even happened to me in the first place. But like, for the most part, it's just conflict with your sales counterparts and like trying to align on one vision. Sometimes sales engineers kind of, because we have that product lens and we care a lot, we see things differently than some salespeople who might just be focused on closing a deal at a particular deal band.
Right.
Or adding a bunch of products in that don't necessarily bring any value to the customer, but it's just so that they can make more money. So it's also some of those different situations you end up in, but that's all manageable. You kind of learn how to deal with that. It's the things that you don't call for, like getting manipulated by a customer champion, that are always the fun ones. But that happened. That was a good one.
That's crazy, dude.
Speaking about sabotaging, though,
Okay.
what I want to know is, would there ever be a situation where, let's say, because I know competition gets tough, companies, but let's say, like, would you ever find like your sales engineering colleagues sabotaging you for their own benefit? Like, would that ever, like, I don't know if that's happened to you, but maybe you've heard a story like that.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe not a sales engine. Yeah. So there's a lot of this comes just back to corporate politics and working
Mm-hmm.
at companies. You're gonna have corporate politics if you work at a big company, and a lot of what happens around corporate politics, especially at companies that pride themselves on collaboration, is who gets credit for what.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sometimes you'll create some very interesting assets that make their way around the company, and somebody will take credit for what you have done. And
Oh wow.
that's I mean the closest thing to sabotage. The other thing is that corporate politics is a game, and if you don't know how to play it, your career is going to cap out. So there's a lot of people that avoid it.
Okay.
And what I had realized, and the advice that I got, was when I ended up in my very first situation that involved corporate politics, my boss told me, I was just so pissed off about it. I was like, this is not how things are supposed to go. And it's like, dude, remember what happened like in college or just in social life where people take advantage and people try to scheme their way? That doesn't stop. You either have a choice to play the game or not play the game. And he chose not to play the game. But when I look at the people who are at the very top of organizations, they all play the game and they all play it really well. So I realized that I need to learn how to play the game. I have no way. I'm not ready to play this game. It's a good game to play because I'm not like a naturally manipulative person, or I'm not really good at getting my way. It's a very sneaky way. Like these are like Harvard MBAs, Stanford MBAs that are playing this game. So I don't have that type of credibility. I don't know how to play that game. So I'm learning. I'm not like I'm 23, so I don't have enough experience to be able to be successful at it. But it exists. It definitely exists. And if you try to play the game and you don't succeed, you're screwed. You can completely jeopardize years of your career or your job. Or you can burn bridges and burn relationships in an organization where you might not be able to get promoted anymore because the people up top are the people that you bashed with when you're on the same level. So it's a little tricky.
Company politics. No,
that's definitely insightful. I mean, I don't. That's definitely one part of any corporate career that I'm not looking forward to.
Yeah,
but like you said,
startups. A lot of people actually end up leaving big companies because they get involved in drama and they don't like it, and they would go to a startup.
A smaller, yeah.
That's one of many reasons why somebody would go to a startup. But I think like corporate politics are inevitable. So instead of, the way I see it is like, instead of trying to be a better person and whatever, I mean, if I had a family and if I was married, and I had responsibility outside of myself and sort of my parents and my sister, then yeah, I would change things because I have money to bring home. I have a family to feed. But right now, there's absolutely no reason as to why I shouldn't at least try to learn how to play the game.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's fair.
Well, that's the way I see it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's very, I should say this, I wouldn't say transparent, but I actually love your answer. Really.
Yeah, it's insightful, right?
I
And
mean, that's the whole reason. That's the whole reason why this podcast even started, is because I wanted the real face of sales engineering to show. Like there are the ups, but there's also the downsides. Like it's inevitable.
It's not like glamour. It's not like Suits type drama. It's not like that. Nothing you can
the Lewis Litz and the Harvey Specters.
Yeah, it's not like that. Maybe when you're on the executive level, it could be like that. But I mean, I'm not in situations like that. I'm in situations where it's like I'll see my work posted by somebody else, and it's like that'll piss me off. So it's like tiny, like nobody cares, except for you. But a lot of the times, you got to really stand up for yourself. If you do something that you're really proud of, and you're just naturally the type of person to sort of step back and not really enjoy or take pride in or want exposure, trust me, somebody else is going to go and take that exposure from you. So you may well be the person to reap the benefits from it. Somebody else will.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. Well, just before we cap off this honestly super fun episode, I just want to ask you two last questions, if you don't mind. First one that I believe I also asked you, but it's also one I like to ask my guests at the end, is now with the pandemic happening, how's this affected your day-to-day job? Like it's been going on for a year. Technically, you said you were at Salesforce for 2 years. That's like half of your time at Salesforce. Do you think it's a better trend? Like the transition helped you for the better, or did it not?
It's tough to say. I think when I think about what life would look like right now, it would involve a lot of traveling, a lot of really good experiences, a lot of um, creating experiences for my customers that I would also enjoy. Uh, Also, everybody likes, being able to go to a new city, go out to restaurants, go out to basketball games or hockey games with your customers or with the people that you work on deals with and have a good time. So that aspect of it really sucks that I don't get to experience. Um, I was really looking forward to it, but hopefully that'll come back. I think the other thing that's strange is that I used to not be somebody that could get stuff done at home. Like even when I was in college, I just had to go to the library. I initially, before I moved into an apartment downtown, I was commuting maybe about just under 2 hours every single day to work and back simply because I was somebody that needed to be on site. Otherwise, I mentally wouldn't be in it. So that has definitely changed. Like I'm very comfortable at home now working. I'm confident in my ability to get things done there. So a little transition from that perspective. But in terms of like hitting your numbers and like being a successful business, we exceeded our number. We beat what Wall Street wanted us to beat this year in a pandemic. So
Awesome.
we can get it done. We can execute. So there's that. But it's more so the experience that you get as a young professional, being able to travel and meet all these different people and understand how to run in-person meetings and know what to do when you're in uncomfortable situations in front of a large crowd. That's the type of development that I'm not getting right now. Hopefully that will change.
Yeah, for sure.
No,
Hopefully
but
within the next
yeah, because I'm just the reason why I ask is because it might be similar to what us students are facing right now. I mean, yeah, you don't get to see your professors, you don't get to see your friends, but you do get to save on that time you commute to and back to school,
Yeah.
getting ready and all that. So you feel like you have more time to yourself. Would that be true for you?
Yeah, I'm somebody that really enjoys my own personal company. I don't like people being around me for too long.
Yeah, I do
So
too.
yeah, it definitely works. Also, the other thing is like when you're in an office, you have these people that you kind of just nod your head to all the time, and then you don't never say anything to each other. But then you get in a freaking elevator and you're the only two people, and it's just like, God damn, I don't know. So it's all those like unnecessary small talk situations that I don't miss at all. Some people love that stuff. Some very extroverted people really like that stuff. So it sucks that they don't get to experience it. But I'm somebody that like I'm going home and I'm not going to talk to anybody and turn my phone off. I'm just out of this world. I don't exist to you. I'm not a person. So I enjoyed it. I don't mind it. I don't mind it one bit.
awesome.
So
Sorry, Hassan, go ahead. It's
no,
just our last.
yeah, just the last question. What advice would you give to people who are looking into going into sales engineering in the future? And what advice would you have given yourself 10 years, 5 or 10 years ago? 5 years ago.
10 years, dude. This
Five,
guy's
five,
our
five,
age.
five. I keep forgetting. 5. That's why I corrected myself. 5, not 10.
All right. So the most important advice is it's more important to work for a good leader than it is to chase the money early
Okay.
on in your career. Because it doesn't matter how much money you make when you're in your early 20s. It matters about what your foundation is. So somebody that can put you on the right path, show you what excellence looks like, because you're going to end up mirroring what you start your career, the environment you start your career in, and the behaviors that you witness is going to be your very first experiences seeing deals getting closed and conversations with customers happening. So whoever grooms you in that stage, that's it. My boss told me, he was like, who you become in your 20s sets the foundation for the rest of your life.
No pressure.
Who you become in your 20s is dependent on what you surround yourself with. So make sure that you're surrounding yourself with good leaders. So that's the advice that I would give to anybody going into just anything in general. It doesn't just have to be sales engineering. And then if I were to give advice to myself, 10 years ago?
Not 10.
Five.
How old were you 10 years ago?
13.
12?
13.
13. Yeah. That's nuts, bro.
No. So 5 years ago, I would have, I don't know. If I were to give myself advice 5 years ago,
Maybe like before entering college, for example, or like right as you entered college, something like that.
you know what, I would, because I knew about sales engineering, I would have started what you guys had started. If I could go back, I would start to really talk about what sales engineering was back then. She's starting to see all these different things emerge. Like, have you guys seen the Pre-Sales Collective?
Yeah.
So that guy that started it is a manager at SalesForce or a director at SalesForce and sales engineering. And
I didn't know that.
He actually just quit last week to do Pre-Sales Collective full time with his co-founder.
Oh wow.
Oh, that's nuts. Yeah, we didn't even
rolling up to him because he's in the same vertical I am. But sick guy. He has an awesome podcast. He interviewed a lot of guys in your circle. So yeah, that's probably what I would do. I don't know. Advice to myself back then. I feel like I didn't do anything stupid.
Yeah, you did everything right.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. Ask me that again in another 5 years, and we'll see. Because back then, all I thought about was how can I be a Salesforce SC? Period. Full stop. How can I get there? How can I get there?
I guess you already had the vision in your mind, right?
The other thing that I'll say about sales engineering as a young professional is that there's probably no better job to have if you like solving problems, because you're getting paid to listen to the leaders of this world, the builders of tomorrow, talk about what it's going to look like and what's stopping society from progressing in that direction. So you get to understand all the different problems and you get to solve all these different gaps. And then one day it's going to be click, there's a consistent gap, regardless of the industry or the product or the issue. There's a consistent gap that needs to be solved. And that's why people leave big companies and go start tech startups, because they get exposed to problems. So sales engineering is one of those things where, because of the nature of it changing all the time, you're going to be able to get that exposure. And who knows, you can continue to be a sales. There are people that start their careers as sales engineers and retire. People that go into product. There's people that go start tech companies. There's whatever, tons of different options. Most important thing is, though, you're learning so many different perspectives and how so many different worlds work, and it's invaluable, especially at the beginning of your career.
Just like so much exposure, right, to like everything.
Yeah. You're still
amazing. All right, awesome answer, and all your answers were great. I think we had like a lot of fun. Just before we wrap up, we just wanted to, I know I mentioned this actually in October, that we were going to get a mug for you. Did I mention a mug? I don't know if we did. So we actually have our mug. I think Hassan has it. We ordered them. They finally came in.
Let me see this mug.
Yeah. So we're going to ship that out to you.
Oh, let's go.
And you'll get it soon. I know it kind of took a while. You came all the way in October, but honestly, we had a tough time deciding which mug to get. Like, we spent 3 weeks just choosing different
and stuff.
Yeah, like options, like different like companies. But yeah, we'll get that out to you.
I've got like 2 mugs in my apartment, so I could definitely.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
for sure. You can remember this episode every time you drink your coffee in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
On it?
Sorry?
What?
Does it say McGill on it?
Yeah, I think it says.
It does.
Yeah, it has the text, right? So yeah, McGill Technical Sales Club.
I don't even have a Mac mug, but I'm pumped.
You don't have a Mac mug, but you're gonna rep McGill.
We're
Awesome.
blending.
Awesome.
All right. Guys.
Anyway, Zach, thank you very much for this episode, and thank you everybody here for watching and listening. And we'll be back very soon, hopefully, with more episodes. And yeah, peace.
Sure.
Bye.